Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us for another Bishop Barron Presents. My name is Matt Nelson. I'm the Assistant Director of the Word on Fire Institute, and once again, I'll be your MC for tonight's event. I'd like to begin the evening by thanking all of you who have joined us here tonight in studio. It's so good to have you all here. Thank you so much for coming. And of course, we want to acknowledge all those who are joining us from far and wide on our live stream tonight. Thank you also to all of you for joining us. Now, let's get right into it. Here's how things are going to work tonight. First of all, we've got a real treat for everybody tonight. We've got Dr. Arthur Brooks with us, and in just a few minutes, you're going to hear from him. But following his presentation, I just want to let you know what's going to happen after that. Following Dr. Brooks' presentation, there's going to be a 10-minute intermission. Now, after that 10-minute intermission, there's going to be a dialogue up on stage here, moderated by Jared Zimmer, the director of the Word on Fire Institute. The dialogue is going to be between Bishop Robert Barron and Dr. Brooks. But that's an exclusive event. So this here that you're watching right now, that's open to anyone who's tuning in. But to catch the second part of tonight, the dialogue between Dr. Brooks and Bishop Barron, you've got to be a member of the Word on Fire Institute. And to become a member, it's easy. Just go to wordonfire.institute. And there you can sign up in less than a minute, and you'll be able to take in the full event tonight. So go to wordonfire.institute and check it out. Sign up. We'd love to have you join us. And of course, there's much more there for you in the Institute than just this live event tonight. Another perk of joining the Word on Fire Institute, we want everybody to know this, including our existing members right now, is we've got the brand new Evangelization and Culture Journal Winter Edition ready in the digital version. You'll be able to access that as a member right now. And if you sign up, or if you're already a member, you can expect in December, probably around Christmas sometime, to receive the print version of the new journal. It's beautiful. It's got incredible contributions inside of it, including exclusive long interview that Jared Zimmer did with Dr. Brooks. So become a Word on Fire Institute member, wordonfire.institute, and you can take in the whole event tonight. You'll get the journal and much more. So with that, I'm going to do a little introduction to the theme tonight, and then I'm going to get out of the way and on with the main event. So tonight's theme is Love Your Enemies, Civility in a Culture of Contempt. I likely need not convince you of the cultural relevance and urgency of such a topic. There's also little need for me to give examples to illustrate the coarse and often scornful style of rhetoric which pervades the culture at every level here in America and beyond. Too often today, anyone who desires to openly disagree with another must also, all at once, be prepared to insult. It's clear that we as a society have largely forgotten how to respectfully agree to disagree. Just turn on the TV or conduct a quick scan of your Twitter feed and you'll have your proof. Indeed, the individualism that so markedly permeates our culture today has largely become, at least in a sense, radicalized. It seems far too many have become ill-concerned with making the good of the other their ultimate concern. Such a failure to love our neighbors, and our enemies for that matter, has serious implications at all levels of human life and society, including at the level of economics. As a 20th century economist, Henry Hazlitt, observed, quote, "The inherent difficulties of economics would be great enough in any case, but they're multiplied 1,000-fold by the special pleading of selfish interests." It's somewhat ironic that so many people today associate the age we live in with the term tolerance. Indeed, tolerance, properly understood, is a good and noble and even Christian practice. Tolerance is simply to love a person in error. Today, however, to be tolerant is to be indifferent to another person's choices or beliefs. To approve, or simply to express no opinion at all, is to love. But to disapprove of another person's views or actions is to maltreat, or even for some, to do violence. Perhaps, as C.S. Lewis believed was the case with words like romantic and love, the true meaning of the word tolerance has been far too lost to be used today with any real efficacy. Many serious thinkers have found Alistair MacIntyre to be quite right when he forcefully contended in his great book After Virtue that, quote, "The appearances of morality persist, even though the integral substance of morality has to a large degree been fragmented and then in part destroyed." Well, maybe you disagree with me. But even if you do, you may still find profound wisdom in these words from the great French philosopher Jacques Maritain, who wrote, quote, "I prefer the word fellowship to tolerance, for it connotes something positive in human relationships. It conjures up the image of traveling companions who meet here below by chance and journey through life, however fundamental their differences may be, in good humor, in cordial solidarity, and in human agreement." We've largely forgotten how to love our enemies, maybe because we've forgotten that in the order of creation, our enemies are also our brothers and sisters. In Frank Sheed's book, Society and Sanity, a book Dr. Peter Kraft has called the very best introduction to Catholic social and political thought, Sheed emphasized that our treatment of anything must depend ultimately on what we think it is. Therefore, Sheed concludes, we cannot know how men should be treated until we're quite clear about what a man is. Clearly, then, we need to get back to asking and discussing the most basic and most timeless of questions. Questions like, what is a human person? What is good for the human person? Questions like, what is love? Well, tonight you're going to hear a serious treatment of such questions. Tonight you're going to hear from two men who have mastered the art of maintaining civility in serious dialogue. And so without further delay, let me introduce to you our special guest tonight, Dr. Arthur Brooks. Dr. Brooks began his career as a classical French hornist, leaving college at 19 years old to tour with the Annapolis Brass Quintet and later the City Orchestra of Barcelona. In his late 20s, he returned to school and earned a BA at Thomas Edison State College, an MA in economics from Florida Atlantic University, and eventually an MPhil, that's a master's in philosophy, and a PhD in public policy analysis from the Rand Graduate School. Dr. Brooks then spent 10 years as professor at Syracuse University, and he served for 10 years as president of the American Enterprise Institute, a public policy think tank in Washington, D.C. And now, since July of 2019, Dr. Brooks serves as professor and fellow at Harvard University. He's the author of 11 books, including several national bestsellers. He's a columnist for the Washington Post, host of the podcast, The Arthur Brooks Show, and subject of the 2019 documentary film, The Pursuit. He's a devout Catholic. He's a good and longtime friend of Bishop Barron's, and tonight, it's my honor and privilege to welcome to the stage Dr. Arthur Brooks.
Thank you.
Good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so very much for that incredibly gracious introduction. What an honor it is to be here with my friend Bishop Robert Barron. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, thank you very much for tuning in. I'm the free content. Bishop Barron's the premium content. So do stay tuned. And my little commercial message is that I am a member of the Word on Fire Institute. I do subscribe to the premium content, and truly it's changed my life. Not just my friendship with Bishop Barron, but what I've learned from him week after week. The people here in the live audience, you're followers of Bishop Barron as well. Sometimes I reflect on my own work. I travel around giving talks. I have the privilege of being able to talk to people about ideas all over the United States. And sometimes I wonder, how does the work that I do relate to what Bishop Barron does? And I think that, properly understood, I'm kind of an inverted Bishop Barron. See, Bishop Barron, he helps us understand how the supernatural can inform our day-to-day lives. I'm a social scientist, and my job, my Catholic apostolate, is to talk about how the world around us can help us get closer to God. I'm a lay person, I'm not a cleric, but I do my best to bring people along through their lay people's lives as well. How can our day-to-day experience of life bring us closer to God? I'm going to give you an example of how I think we can do this using the polarized political world that we're all suffering from. Nobody likes what's going on in politics today. It doesn't matter what your politics are. We don't like the discourse. We don't like the polarization. The hate is too much. You're probably worried about our country right now, worried about the direction that we're going, the way that we talk to each other. How can we use the current time as an opportunity? How can we use it as an opportunity for us to get closer to God and to bring others? Well, if I do my job, I'm going to give you an example of how I think we can in the next 20 minutes. And then I want to give you some tangible solutions, some concrete ideas that you can use to improve your life, to improve your faith. The conversation we'll have later with Bishop Barron, I think we'll put a point on it as well. But I want to start with what we've all learned from the teachings of Bishop Barron. He talks constantly about love. Tonight's topic is contempt, but let's go to the other side. He talks about love, and everybody knows that Bishop Barron is an expert in the works of Thomas Aquinas. And he always defines love like St. Thomas. Love is to will the good of the other as other. Let me say it again. This is my best Bishop Barron impression. Listen. To will the good of the other as other. That, of course, is hard stuff. It's not sentimental. It's not to feel the good of the other. It's an act. It's a discipline. It's a strong thing. And it comes right from the gospel, of course. Matthew 22:37. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. Okay, you're thinking, I'm cool with that. I'm down with that. Now let's take it up a notch. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. Kind of hard to do. But we'll give it a good college try. Now our Lord is steely-edged. Because in the book of Matthew, a little bit earlier, he challenges us to a kind of love that's even harder. Go back to the 5th chapter. Matthew 5:44. You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. Love your enemies. Have you ever heard something so subversive? Have you ever heard something so difficult? That, my friends, is an act of will, not an act of feeling. You hate your enemies. That's your feeling. You love your enemies if you have the will. How do you do it? How do you do it? I was pondering this in my heart in my work as a social scientist. It was February of 2014. I was doing what I always do. For a living, what do? I was, until relatively recently, when I moved to the faculty at Harvard, before that I was running a think tank in Washington, D.C. My job was to raise $50 million a year and give 175 speeches a year. My job was basically running for Senate and never getting elected. And in February of 2014, I had this on my heart. Love your enemies. And I read this article, and this academic journal article, in a famous academic journal called the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. It's one of the most prestigious lay journals in science. And it was written by 3 social psychologists at Northwestern University. It was about a subject called motive attribution asymmetry. What's that? That's a bunch of fancy words for a relatively simple concept. That's what we academics do to get tenure. Make it sound complicated. Motive attribution asymmetry is the circumstance in which 2 parties in an intractable conflict believe that they each are motivated by love, but the other side is motivated by hatred. That describes most conflicts that don't seem to have a terminus to them, that can't be solved. I'm motivated by love, but they're motivated by hatred, so there's no reason for us to talk. It turns out that circumstance is a cognitive error. How come? Because both sides can't be motivated by love and hate. One side is wrong or both, usually both. Where do we see it? Palestinian-Israeli conflict, the wake of the Rwandan genocide, the Balkans, all these places around the world that you'd expect. Here's why that article in 2014 got my attention. The academics who wrote it found that for the first time since we've been keeping records, Democrats and Republicans in America are displaying the same level of motive attribution asymmetry as the Palestinians and Israelis. My friends, when left and right treat each other like hostile foes, blood enemies, there is no way that we can make progress. Forget all the talk of civility, forget all the talk of tolerance. Unless we solve that, we can go nowhere. Now, this is way before the 2016 election. 2 years before, but I thought, we have problems. Now, right after I read that, about a month after I read that, I was doing what I was always doing, which was traveling around giving talks. I give talks to everybody. I don't care if it's a very progressive audience at a university or a group of conservative activists. I'll talk to anybody who wants to think about ideas. I love it. It's a privilege. It's a gift from God. To me, it beats working. And on one night, about a month after I read this article, I was in New Hampshire at a rally, a rally of conservative activists, about 600 political conservative activists. And I got there early for my talk, and I looked at the program, and I noticed that there were 15 speakers, and I was the only one not running for president. I thought, well, this is a mistake. But there are no mistakes, only opportunities, right? What's my opportunity when I'm there with 14 presidential candidates? I'm the only one who can say what I think. And so I did. Well, now, all the people I listened to 3 speeches before me, they were doing what presidential candidates always do. God bless them. They were saying, let's get into a room where everybody already agrees with me and say, you're right. And everybody who's not here is stupid and evil. That's what they do. So I got up and I said, my friends, you've been giving applause to a lot of presidential candidates here tonight. You've been hearing a lot of things that you agree with. You've been hearing you're right. But I want you to think for a minute about the people who are not in this room and would not be comfortable in this room because they disagree with you politically. Political liberals, progressives. I want you to remember, they're not stupid, they're not evil. They're simply Americans who disagree with you about public policy. And if your job is to persuade them, and that should be your job, you can only do it in one way. I was thinking about Bishop Barron. With love. It was not an applause line. But there was applause. It came a minute later from a lady in the audience because it was a festive environment. She was making a joke. She said, I think they're stupid and evil. Now, I didn't take it personally. It didn't offend me. But you know what it made me think of for that moment? My mind at that moment went, because I was thinking about that article, right? That motive attribution asymmetry. And this lady was displaying motive attribution asymmetry. My mind went to Seattle. Why? It's my hometown. The most liberal city in America is my hometown. My mother was an artist. My father was a college professor in Seattle. What do you think their politics were? That lady was insulting my mom. And I took it personally. I didn't feel angry with that lady, but it reminded me of something, a lesson that I had learned as a kid. You know, in a free society, moral courage is not standing up to the people you disagree with. That might be a good thing to do. I mean, congratulations. Stand up with courage to people with whom you disagree. That's fine. But moral courage in a free society where there's no knock in the night and no jackbooted thug when you say something unpopular. Look, you can write on Instagram right now that you don't like the President of the United States. Nobody's going to show up and arrest you. That is a miracle by world standards. In a free society, true moral courage is standing up to the people with whom you agree on behalf of those with whom you disagree. How often are we doing that? That, my friends, is the way that we solve the problem of motive attribution asymmetry. So why is it so hard? Why is it so hard? Some people will say, because the country is so angry. That's wrong. The problem is not that the country is so angry. People are angry, and if you turn on cable television, you'll get an earful of it. But anger actually is not something that drives people permanently apart. Quite the contrary. Anger is a hot emotion. It says, I care and I want you to change. Literally, anger and divorce are uncorrelated in the literature. I've been married for 28 years to a Spaniard. And the secret to my 28 years of marital bliss is the lack of correlation between anger and divorce. No, the problem is not anger. The problem is when you take that hot emotion, anger, and you mix in something ice cold, disgust. And then you get contempt. What's contempt? Contempt, according to Arthur Schopenhauer, the 19th century philosopher, is the conviction of the utter worthlessness of another person. Let me say it again. The conviction of the utter worthlessness of another person. You ever been treated with contempt? Yeah. Marriage counselors will often say that the one thing that they're looking for that predicts divorce better than anything else when a couple is quarreling is eye rolling. eye rolling. You've done that. So have I. I have teenage kids, so they roll their eyes so hard they fall backwards in their chairs, But when it's your wife, when it's your husband, when it's your friend, when it's your coworker, when it's somebody from whom you deserve respect, love, and you get it, it's like physical abuse. That contempt hurts more than anything else. It drives couples apart. And when we do it as a society, when you get into the habit of talking to each other with contempt about politics, no wonder we have motive attribution asymmetry. It's impossible that we wouldn't. So why do we do it? I bet you're thinking to yourself, yeah, I do that. And with people you love, quick, show of hands. And for those of you on the internet, you can raise your hand and I'll feel it. How many of you love somebody with whom you disagree politically? And yet, some of you are dreading Thanksgiving. Because old Uncle Joe with his conservative views, or Aunt Louise who's a socialist. I know it. I know you're not looking forward to it. I'm going to give you some solutions tonight. First of all, you got to break your habit of contempt. And when I say we have to break the habit of contempt, I mean we. I was writing about this, and I went back and looked at my old clips on YouTube, and I was on CNBC or CNN or something, I was debating this lady about some economic policy, and she made a remark that I thought was particularly ill-considered, and I rolled my eyes. And I guarantee you that lady didn't go home that night and say, to somebody in her family, I was debating this economist from the American Enterprise Institute, and he was making some very good points. I guarantee you, she said, I was debating this guy on TV tonight. What a jerk. And she was right. That was an unforced error, as they say in baseball. And I guarantee you, every time she sees me on TV since then, she says, there's that jerk. She's not wrong, my friends. I deserved it. So why do we do it? And the answer is it's a habit like anything else. And all habits, what they have in common, is a little tiny part of the brain called the nucleus accumbens, about the size of the end of your index finger. It's in a very ancient part of your brain, evolved more than 1 million years ago. You think that your actions are governed by your prefrontal cortex, the big meaty lobes behind your forehead. It's the nucleus accumbens that rewards behavior that's habitual. The more you do it, the harder it gets to break, because that little part of your unconscious lizard brain is making you do this over and over again. You ever tried to break a habit by force of will? It never works. I won't smoke. You will smoke. The way you break a habit is not easy, but it's simple. You have to reprogram your nucleus accumbens. And the way that you do it is by simply being conscious of stimulus. I feel the urge to do something, and simply stop. Stop. Why? Because then you give yourself enough time that your conscious brain can act, and you put some other response in there instead. You don't want to smoke? Simply, I want to smoke right now. Stop. Have a drink instead. So what do you do when you feel the urge to answer somebody with contempt? They make a stupid remark. They treat you with contempt. They treat you with hatred because of your political views. You want to answer with contempt. You want to roll your eyes. That's the stupidest thing you've ever heard. Stop. What do you do instead? Well, the way to figure that out is to think of a time when you were treated with contempt. You were treated with hatred. And you accidentally answered with love, no matter how you felt. And think how that changed the situation and, in fact, changed you. In 2006, I was teaching at Syracuse University, and I had the best life. Academics have the best life. I was beavering away in obscurity. I was writing books that nobody ever read because they were boring. But I had great graduate students. My life was happy. And then suddenly my life changed almost overnight, because I wrote a book, and it was like lightning striking. It happens to academics sometimes, where you'll write a book and suddenly it gets into the news for whatever reason. It was a very boring book, had a lot of math and statistics and numbers in it, but it was, somehow it got the attention of President Bush, and he invited me to the White House, and it was in the newspapers, and my book started selling 1,000 copies a day. My life was never the same. The problem wasn't the press, but here was the weird thing that was very disconcerting that changed my life the most. I started hearing from total strangers. This is really weird. People, when you have a book that's selling a lot and they don't know you, and they like it, they'll tell you about their grandma or something. Personal stuff. And if they don't like it, they don't like you, and they tell you. Okay, so a couple of months after the book came out, I was getting dozens of emails from total strangers. And I was in my office one day, and an email came in Wednesday afternoon or something from a guy in Texas. Here's how it starts. Dear Professor Brooks, you are a fraud. It's a bad way to start email. But I keep reading because I'm kind of a good sport. And I notice this email is 5,000 words long. It's going to take me 20 minutes to read it. I'm making my way through it. This guy is from Texas. He's refuting every point in my book. This data is wrong. This conclusion is wrong. You misuse the stats in this way. The columns in table 3.1 are reversed, you moron. I mean, it was detailed in his vitriolic abuse. And about 2/3 of the way through the email, I became conscious of my emotions, about what I was feeling. You know what it was? He read my book. I mean, nobody ever read my books before. So I thought to myself, I'm going to tell him. I got nothing to lose. I'm going to tell him what's written on my heart right now. Dear so-and-so, email. I know you hated my book. I know you think it's stupid and terrible, and I'm terrible, and it's terrible, and everything's terrible. You made that very clear. I said. But it took me 2 years to write that book, and I put my whole heart into it. You read every word. I'm so grateful to you. Thank you. Send. And then I go back to work, and I'll probably never hear from that guy again, right? 15 minutes later, ding, his email comes back up again. I'm like, uh-oh, maybe he wants to kill me now or so, I don't know. I open it up. Here's what it says. Dear Professor Brooks, next time you're in Dallas, if you want to get some dinner, give me a call. What just happened? He had treated me with complete contempt, hatred even. I answered with sincere gratitude, which is an expression of love. It's not even civility or tolerance. Real gratitude is an expression of love. I'm not even interested in civility. Civility is a garbage standard. If I told you that my wife Esther and I are civil to each other, you'd say, you need counseling. And my employees tolerate me, you'd say I have a human resource problem. Love. And the sincerest, fast, efficient expression of love. It's gratitude. That's what I learned that. By the way, I did not have dinner with that guy in Dallas. I'd probably be chained to a pipe in his basement right now or something. I don't know. A little too edgy for Word on Fire. I'm sorry. So this is the secret to loving your enemies. This is the secret to your Thanksgiving dinner. This is the secret, my friends. You get contempt, you stop. What am I supposed to do right now? What does my heart really want me to do? What does the Lord want me to do? Is to answer with love, with warm-heartedness, with gratitude. What if you don't feel it? Fake it till you feel it. Here are your 2 pieces of strategy before I turn over the mic. Run toward the contempt. Go looking for it this Thanksgiving. Go looking for it. It's your opportunity to live the gospel. You can't do it if people already have the message. I've had a lot of missionaries in my family, and I admire them so much. Why? Because missionaries they're always putting up with rejection. You know words that no humans have ever stated before? Oh, good, there's missionaries on the porch. Ever, right? Like, pretend we're not home. And yet, they're full of love. They're full of happiness. They're full of joy. Why? Because they have an opportunity to go where there is no light, and there's a chance that they're going to give light. What a privilege. That's our privilege, too. We live in a country full of contempt. This is the opportunity we've been waiting for as Christians, is to bring love where there isn't love. What a great entrepreneurial opportunity. But you got to go out and find it. If you don't have enough people disagreeing with you, you need more friends. It's like, stay off Facebook for a minute. Go talk to people. Get their views. And when they express contempt, you say, thank you, Lord. Thank you. Now's my time. Run toward contempt. 2, show more gratitude. There was a great magician in the 1920s named Howard Thurston. He's featured in the best book I've ever read and forgotten and read again, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I know it's corny, but you got to read it if you haven't read it. It's a guide to faithful, courageous, moral living. And he talks about this magician, Howard Thurston, the world's greatest performer, he was called. Why is it? Because he could make the audience feel like it was the first night. Because he was so full of happiness. He was laughing along with the audience, and he was interested, and he made it look like it was new and good. And so Dale Carnegie, he went backstage to Howard Thurston's last performance and said, "How did you do it?" He said, "It's very simple. Before I go out on stage each night, I say a little prayer. I am truly grateful for the people in those seats who make it possible for me to make my living doing something that I love." And then before he went up on stage, before he hit the footlights, he said under his breath, "I love my audience. I love my audience." My friends, gratitude changes you. Gratitude changes the situation. You have an opportunity to persuade. You will be happier. They might be happier. You're the beginning of the solution to the problem. You know, if I leave you with anything at all, it'll be a lesson that I learned from Bishop Barron, where he tells a story about a sign over the door of this Southern Baptist church. It's a sign for people going out into the parking lot, not coming into the church. And I heard that story, and I'm going to tell you more about it in a second. I didn't think too much about it until I saw the sign myself at a Catholic retreat center near my home, where I used to live in Bethesda, Maryland, where my wife and I would do marriage prep, pre-Cana, for people engaged. It's a sign going out to the parking lot after you've been to the Catholic retreat center. Says, "You're now entering mission territory." So my friends, if you're sick of what's going on in this country with the contempt, you don't like it, and you don't just want to stop it, if you want to turn it into an opportunity for grace, an opportunity for transcendence, an opportunity for your moral perfection and bringing more happiness to others, then don't forget that that is your moment. And as you go toward your Thanksgiving table, as you walk into the room on that day, and Uncle Joe or Aunt Marge is about to unload on you with their obnoxious politics, remember at that moment that you are truly entering mission territory. And you're going to do some good. And for that, for making our country better, for making your family better, for being here tonight and supporting Word on Fire Ministries, my only words are, God bless Bishop Barron. God bless Word on Fire. God bless you. Thank you.
Great stuff. Well, Dr. Brooks is a world-class thinker and presenter, and it showed, didn't it? Another round of applause, please. Good stuff. But the evening is still really just getting started, so we're going to be taking a 10-minute intermission in just a moment. And before we do that, I have to do another sales pitch. So, I've tried to get Father Steve Grunow, the CEO of Word on Fire, to fire me many times. And there's a few reasons. One is I'm Canadian, so to bring somebody, to bring a foreigner, as strange as it is to have someone so exotic as me with Word on Fire, there's the immigration stuff, right? And so that's a pain in the butt. So I've given him permission multiple times to let me go, and he still hasn't. But it's worse than that, because for a millennial, I'm also terrible at social media and just technology in general. And I'm a bad salesperson, and I always get stuck doing this. I tried it. I used to sell mutual funds. It didn't go well. So, but anyways, this is a God-led ministry, and so sometimes you get stuck doing things that really make no sense, but this is the job I've been given. So for those of you that aren't Word on Fire Institute members, go to wordonfire.institute and sign up. We'd love to have you a part of our community. You get this brand new journal. You'll get the print edition in December, and right now you can access this brand new journal just released. You can get the digital version right now, plus all the courses from world-class instructors, professors from all over the world, experts, scholars in all sorts of areas, theology, philosophy, sociology, and more. There's lots to check out there. So please go to wordonfire.institute. If you want to know more about the journal, which I think is a world-class journal. And you wouldn't. This is only the second edition. The first edition has gotten rave reviews from all sorts of people. It's really exciting. Go to wordonfire.institute/journal, and you can read a little bit about this project. We've got world-class contributors here as well. So just I keep using the word world-class as a world-class production that we're trying to put on here, and world-class ministry. We're trying to reach people all over the world, all over the globe, preaching Christ to the culture under the leadership of Bishop Robert Barron. So please, wordonfire.institute. We'd love to have you part of our community. So let's take a 10-minute intermission, and we will be back for the dialogue part of the evening. Thank you.